Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
The Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. In episode 74, Keri Cooper delves into the 10 critical foundations for a healthy, balanced life. Now, maybe we might start, Keri, by going through what the 10 foundations are and how they can help us to improve our life.
Sure. Let me start with the physical ones. Those are sometimes the easier ones for people to say, aha, let me put that into play, as of tomorrow. So I really have noticed that there's 5 physical foundations, and there's a lot of research that's backing this up, and more research, thankfully, is coming out about this. So one of them is food. And I think there's more and more research now coming out as well. If we are not eating well, there is no way we could have good mental health. 90% of our chemicals are actually made in our gut. So it is so important to take care of ourselves.
The Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. Hello and welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Healing Through Love is here to help victims and survivors of domestic and family violence find their way back into living a more fulfilling and meaningful life. We interview experts and survivors who share their personal stories and offer advice to those who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. As well as the Healing Through Love podcast, we hold annual Pamper Days in Adelaide, Australia, for survivors of domestic and family violence. This is where local businesses come together and pay it forward by providing their services and resources for the day to give our survivors a much-deserved day of indulgence. And now we've gone global. We've got people in the US, Canada, and in Hong Kong. We'll be holding annual Pamper Days, so we're really excited about that. Today, my guest is Keri Cooper, and we're going to be discussing today the foundations of mental health, and she's going to be sharing with us 10 foundations, which include 5 physical and 5 mental health foundations that set people up to success, and this can all be done by creating daily habits. Now, Keri is the owner of Keri Cooper Holistic Therapy in Northern New Jersey in the US. In her private practice, she counsels teens and works to give them the tools they need to navigate life. Keri takes a holistic approach to therapy, looking at the whole person and not just their symptoms. She is the author of Mental Health Uncensored, 10 Foundations Every Parent Needs to Know. And it's a book designed to give parents steps on how to improve their child's mental health. She is a speaker and writer who helps educate teens and parents on the topics teens face in everyday life. Keri, welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast. Thank you so much for sharing, for giving up your time today and sharing your 10 foundations.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let me start. How did you start wanting to, be a holistic therapist, and why 10 foundations?
Sure. So I started my practice probably 20 years ago in the world of therapy, and I got really frustrated. I kept on seeing people, try really hard in therapy. They were on, the right medications, and they would even do like group therapies. They were really trying, and they were getting better, but not 100%. And I felt like we're missing something, like something is off here. And it wasn't until, my own personal life kind of gave me the keys to that. It was, oh, wait a second. I think food might have something to do with this. And that's where I kind of started. And, I realized for myself, when I'm eating a healthier, cleaner diet, wow, my mood is so much more stable. I feel so much more energized. And I said, you know what? Like, I need to really explore this more in the world of mental health. And I started just diving into the research, and I started really exploring not just food, but all these other physical foundations that make us healthy. And I always say it's kind of like building a house. If you build a house and there's not a strong foundation, any stress in the environment is going to make the house come crashing down.
Mm.
When you have a strong foundation, you could handle life stresses so much better. So I really started preaching about that. I started taking a very holistic approach because of it. And then through being a therapist, I started also realizing the themes that I kept on telling people, which was, respect your boundaries. It's okay to say no. And I started compiling all of these. And it was during COVID when, anybody who was hanging on to their mental health by a string during COVID, they just got pushed off the ledge. It was so bad for so many people. And we don't really say what it was, but it was a global trauma. COVID was just, it was global trauma like we've never seen before. And hopefully we will never see again. But so many people needed help. So that's when I wrote the book, Mental Health Uncensored, 10 Foundations Every Parent Needs to Know. Even though everybody can benefit from these tools, I wrote it specifically for parents to try to help their kids through these times. So that's where my 10 foundations kind of came from, because I wanted to put something in someone's hand where they can go, aha, I can do this starting tomorrow.
Yeah, it's interesting how COVID changed the world in so many ways. Mental health was one of the things that suffered the most, I think. And you're right, on a global scale, it was just, didn't confine itself to countries or to suburbs or to regions. It was everywhere. And lockdowns for some were quite traumatic.
Yes. Staying in a house with maybe people where it's not a great situation, that's trauma. Yeah, but also just, not knowing if you're going to go to work the next day, not knowing if you're going to go to school, not knowing if you're going to get sick, if you're going to get somebody else sick, if there's going to be toilet paper in the grocery store. Everything was like out of our control. It was so challenging, and we're still seeing the impacts of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, maybe we might start, Keri, by going through what the 10 foundations are and how they can help us to improve our life.
Sure. Let me start with the physical ones. Those are sometimes the easier ones for people to say, aha, let me put that into play, as of tomorrow. So I really have noticed that there's 5 physical foundations, and there's a lot of research that's backing this up, and more research, thankfully, is coming out about this. So one of them is food. And I think there's more and more research now coming out as well. If we are not eating well, there is no way we could have good mental health. 90% of our chemicals are actually made in our gut. So it is so important to take care of ourselves. And one of the things we see a lot, especially with kids who we're like, oh, they're just like moody. They're actually sugar high and then dropping, sugar high and then dropping, because they're just eating all this processed sugary food. So their blood sugar is never stabilizing. And now there's a lot of research on blood sugar as well, and how that leads to symptoms of mental health. So food is definitely one of them. Exercise. We need to move our bodies. All the research is supporting that. And, if you're not going to move your body for your physical health, you should be moving it for your mental health. It's almost even more important. Meditation. We have to build some form of meditation practice into our daily life. And that's because meditation brings us back to the right now, this moment. And normally in the right now, this moment, it's okay. We're not worried about the future. We're not sad or regretful about the past. Like, it's okay. So to practice doing this is really the point of meditation, to practice coming back to the moment, to practice calming our nervous system. That's what meditation is about. The other one is sleep. We are sleep deprived. All you have to do, I don't know about over there, but by where I am, is watch TV for a little bit, and every sleep medication is, up on the commercials. We have a major sleep problem in this country, and I'm sure in the whole world.
Mm.
People are not prioritizing their sleep. People are not getting good sleep. And it's crucial. It is crucial that you actually take that time and that you rest your body. Because think of, a toddler. We would always say like, oh, he's cranky. He's had no nap when they're toddlers. Listen, we're no different as adults. And we're definitely not different as teenagers. They need their sleep.
Mm.
And the final physical part is we have to be hydrated. And so often people forget this very simple step. Every cell in your body needs it. So it is as easy as your goal the next day to say, I'm going to drink half of my, body weight in ounces and be able to fully be hydrated to actually start feeling better. There are studies that show that when we're dehydrated, we can't focus. We're more irritable. This all leads to us not being able to deal with stress.
Yeah, I read a study some years ago about teenage sleep, and they need, heaps more than an adult, but their time, their body clocks are a lot different than ours too. And there was conversations going around that perhaps we could start the school day later and finish later because of the fact that they you don't work on the same body clock as adults.
Yes, they actually started around me, starting some high schools later because of those studies. And we're noticing that the kids are doing a little bit better. They're getting a little bit more sleep. And it's really important. They can't catch up on the weekends. Like you can't sleep deprive yourself all week and then sleep till, midday on the weekend and think it's going to be okay. It's not. And parents,
I would catch up on sleep anyway. That's an old wives' tale. It doesn't matter. You if you miss out the sleep, you miss out the sleep, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Absolutely. Right. So you can't catch up. So it's so important. I always tell parents, you need to model this for your kids. You can't be up all night long, doing laundry and cleaning. Like you have to prioritize your sleep as well. And so often, especially moms, they don't prioritize their sleep because they're prioritizing everybody else.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. That's very, very true. I've raised 3 kids, and by the time I've got them down, and when they were small, and and then try and find some time for myself, really it was quite late before I got to bed, and so I'd wake up all cranky because I didn't have the sleep that I needed.
Right. And then it's like this vicious cycle that just keeps on going.
Absolutely. So what are the mental foundations,
Sure.
Keri?
So the mental health foundations, one is being able to say no. We have to teach our children, and we have to learn for ourselves. It is okay to say, no, I can't do that. No, I don't have time for that. Unless we just get drained. So saying no is a really important one. Another one is we need to teach our children responsibility. Not everything should fall on our plate. We need to make them responsible human beings. We can't save them all the time. And that's really important for parents to be able to take that step back and say, you can do it, and to take themselves out of the picture. When your child can do it, make them responsible. We also have to let our children know that it is okay to be disappointed. You will be disappointed many times in life. It's normal. It's fine. And we don't need to save them from that feeling of disappointment. We're not helping when we do that. We're just kind of putting them in bubble wrap. And then one day they're going to get disappointed and we're not going to be able to save them. And that goes into also, we need to be able to let go of our children in order for them to build confidence. If a child feels like they can't use the stove because the parents are so afraid that they're going to burn something, that's telling them they're not capable. And at a certain age, they need to be able to do that. They need to be able to engage in these basic life skills. And there's been a big problem lately with parents just kind of being helicopter parents and diving in and doing way too much, stressing themselves out and not giving the kids the self-confidence they need or the problem-solving skills that they really need. And my final 5th one, and this is a hard one for people to deal with, we have to learn that we are not responsible for somebody else's feelings. We can be a good person. We should conduct ourselves how it feels good for us. But at the end of the day, if we are being our best human being, we cannot control if somebody is upset with us, especially if we set a boundary that was important for us. We can't control if somebody's angry with us because we said no to something, and that's okay. I have too many kids in my office saying, I really can't go out with my friend tomorrow. I have so many hours of homework, but I can't say no to her. She'll be mad. No, you can't be responsible for her feelings. It's hard enough being responsible for our own feelings. We can't take on someone else's.
Yeah. And parenthood is not an easy journey because, there's no textbook on how to be a good parent. And if you've had no role models growing up, so your parenting skills usually are modeled on what you've seen and heard. And despite our best efforts, sometimes you end up being the parent that, treated you the worst, which is so disappointing. When your own children come back to you and say, oh, certain stuff, and you didn't realize that you were like that. But then you realize, oh, I'm just like my mother. Oh dear. Yeah, and you didn't think it, and
right.
Yeah, it's really hard to be a parent, and we don't get enough credit for, or all the things that we teach ourselves or teach our children.
It is so challenging to be a parent, and let me tell you, nobody has it down. Like everybody, is trying to do their best and struggling, and some days are better than others. But I also tell parents all the time, like, we're all in this together. Ask other people for help. Don't be afraid to say, I need help. Don't be afraid to also set boundaries and say, I know I can't do that. Because so often parents who are trying so hard, they just get so overwhelmed. They just get so stressed out because they're not taking care of themselves. And because they're not taking care of themselves, they can't handle all of this additional stress. Parenting is stressful. It's really hard.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Got it down with one kid, the other one's completely different. Yeah. And you have to change your whole parenting style.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was, for instance, my cleaning skills, when I had my first child, every weekend when I did the housework, everything had, there was always bleach in the water. I would wipe down every single surface, even when I was dusting, the things that the child wasn't even going to touch, everything was spotless. And then my second child came and I thought, okay, it's not so important. When my third child came, I thought, can't be bothered.
Right. Yes, and that's the lovely thing about parenting. We, with each other kid, we're like, oh, what's really important here? What do I really need to do?
Yeah, and I used to hover between being a helicopter mum and being, the mum that let them try things and do stuff. And so they could never, I don't think they could ever work out, what I was doing, because, sometimes you can't do that because it's dangerous, or make a choice, it's your choice. You make the choices. And, you have to live with the consequences of that choice. But yeah, poor things were so confused.
Yeah, it's really challenging to be a parent, and it's really challenging to be a parent now because our kids are facing so many issues that we never grew up having, such as social media and technology. And we just never had to deal with that. And it's a massive stress for them. It creates so much anxiety. And as parents, like, lots of times we don't really get it. Like, what do you mean you can't just call them up and ask them what they're doing? What do you mean, like, what do you mean you're snapping them? So it's a whole other language that we need to learn as parents as well. And that's a big challenge.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger, and I used to listen to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all those things. And my father had a heart attack almost. He said, "What's just that rubbish?"
And imagine if he was listening to what they're listening to now.
Absolutely. He'd be rolling over in his grave, I reckon.
Yeah.
So I guess, Keri, the question needs to be asked: what can we do as parents to, help our children with these very important foundations?
One of the most important things that a parent can do is to actually model this behavior by taking care of themselves. I can't tell you how many kids are in my office saying, my mom is not sleeping. My mom does not set boundaries. She tries to do everything, and then she's stressed out. We have to model it. We could tell it to them as much as we want. We could tell them to eat healthy. If we're not eating healthy, it's not going to sink in. We can tell them to go out and exercise. If we're not going for a walk, it's not going to sink in. So parents, it really comes back down to, you got to walk the walk. You have to do these things. You have to engage in self-care. That way your children see how important it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's the old saying is monkey see, monkey do. So, children will only progress, I suppose, if they see, as you say, model the adult is modeling the behaviors that we want our children to pick up, I guess. So yeah, if you're doing all those things that are right, then the child will pick up on that. So if you're constantly yelling and stressed out, then the child's going to pick up that behavior, and that's how they'll be treating their friends and partners and so forth in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so much more about what we do opposed to what we say. The words just go in one ear and out the next.
Absolutely. Yeah. And children don't listen, and it is monkey see, monkey do. If they see you do something, I mean, that's how they learn to walk and talk and all those other things. So, as they get older and the behaviors that you display as an adult, of course they're going to pick those up. And children pick up stress, the vibes of a parent being stressed, much more than we realize.
Yes. I can't tell you how many times I have, parents in my office saying, yeah, we have a really stressful situation happening at home, but we haven't told the children. And the children come in and they tell me something is very wrong at home. My parents are very stressed out. They know. They know.
Oh, yeah. They know. They're very intuitive, and they pick up things that we don't give enough credit for, I don't think.
Yes.
So, Keri, if we're all modeling our parenting skills with these 10 foundations, what outcomes, I guess, I mean, that's a bit of a stretch because it depends on the child, depends on the parent, but what outcomes could we perhaps see if we were to pick up these 10 foundations?
Right. Well, I'll tell you the opposite of it. If you are not taking care of yourself, and if you are not hydrated and not exercising and not eating well and not sleeping, you're going to have cranky children. You're going to have children that can't handle stress well. If that is what's happening in the family, if nobody is eating well, there's going to be stress because you just can't handle life without taking care of yourself. You have to have self-care. And it's talked about in mental health, but it's not talked about how important it truly is. It's not just about taking a nice bath and taking some time for yourself. It's about taking care of yourself physically and mentally on a daily basis. And if you are not doing that, you're going to have, less patience. It's going to be overwhelming, any situation that comes up. You're not going to handle stress well. And that's what's going to happen with your children as well.
Yeah. And there's nothing worse than having stressed kids, because they don't understand why. Well, they don't understand stress at all. They just know that they're upset and they're feeling a bit overwhelmed with life. And they don't know why, because they're too young. Even when they're teenagers, they just don't understand what's going on. And they have enough to deal with as teenagers without having the added pressures of a stressful household.
Right. So that's when you see the meltdowns and the tantrums and, the screaming and the yelling, because they can't handle those emotions.
Yeah, so how can we, I guess, and, emotions are, because they're so they're still learning to deal with, their own emotions. And when it comes in a stressful household, how can we as parents, use language that can help them?
One of the things I think that parents need to be aware of when your child is having these really big emotions is to, one, realize it's not personal against you. They're dealing with their own stuff. They're exploding because they can't handle it. try not to be offended when they're rolling their eyes at you or stomping their feet. It's really not about you. Give them space. Sometimes like less words are more important than more words. Like just be quiet, take a step back, let them get those big emotions out and then come back down. Do not try to talk to anyone when they are emotionally like enraged. It's not going to go well. You're just going to get into a fight. Let them relax, let them calm down, and then come to them and say, I noticed you had a really big reaction to this. Tell me more. Tell me what's going on. And help them emotionally that way by just talking with them and talk them through it. But again, parents sometimes want to fix the situation so quickly that while the child is melting down, they're like, what's wrong? Tell me what happened. And the kid's like, just stop. I need my space. So respect their space, I think, is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Keri, where can people find your book?
It's on Amazon, Mental Health Uncensored, 10 Foundations Every Parent Needs to Know. And there's also a workbook for teens that takes them through all of these principles. And it's Mental Health Uncensored, 10 Foundations Every Teen Needs to Know. And it's a workbook that they can dive into and really create these habits for themselves.
Wonderful. And you've got something that you want to promote today?
Just the book. The book is the really important thing. Yep.
Yeah. Where can people find you, Keri, if they want to learn more or to work with you?
Sure. I'm on Instagram at Keri Cooper Holistic Therapy and my website, kericooperholistictherapy.com.
Wonderful. If you were to give some words of wisdom, Keri, what might they be?
Take care of yourselves.
Great words too, because we often as adults don't do that, which we've been discussing. We need to model our behaviors so that our children can become better adults.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Keri. It's been an absolute pleasure learning from you today, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at htlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.